All right, so in this spell work here, I just want you guys to simplify the following expression. So you can see here, you got some e's, and I want you to treat e for now as a variable. I'll explain what e is later, but for now, just pretend like it's how you would treat x. So in this case, you have two e's, and you are multiplying. So if they have the same base and you multiply, you can add the exponents. So I'm going to take these exponents here and add them. So that's going to look like e 2 plus 6, which gives me e to the 8th power, because 2 plus 6 gives me 8. And so then that's pretty much all I can do. I can't simplify this any further. So addition, you have to add, multiplication, you have to add the exponent. So with division, when you have exponents and they have the same base, you can subtract the exponent. So in this scenario, I'm going to take my, my exponents here. So this would be like e 5 minus 3. So you always want to subtract the top from the bottom. So 5 minus 3 gives me e to the 2nd power, because 5 minus 3 is just 2. And then that's all I can do, so this is just e squared. Then currently we just learned about roots. If you have a root here, well, we have to take a cube root of 8, so let's just do that for a moment. Cube root of 8, well, we learned that 8 is composed of 3 2. So if you take the cube root of 8, you can bring out a 2. Now, the cube root of the e to the 9th power. So we learned that if you have an exponent, you have to divide it by the root to simplify. So 9 divided by 3 gives me e to the 3rd power. And then this here would be my final answer, because I really can't simplify that any further. So with roots, make sure you divide the exponents. All right, so all of these properties that we have learned over time are actually really valuable in today's lesson, okay? So I'm going to show you some other problems that look almost like this, but I'm going to add maybe a few x's here and there and see how you guys handle those problems. All right, so let's do some simplifying here. So in this first one, you are multiplying. This asterisk here implies multiplication. So if they both have the same base, and you can add the exponent. So I'm going to take this x and add it with this x plus 1. So what that's going to look like is e x plus 1, right? So when I add these two, I'm just combining like terms. So that's an x, that's an x. If I add them, I get 2x. So this is e 2x plus 1, because, you know, there's that 1 there, so I just dropped that down. So I added those 2x, got a 2x, and then a 1 that comes down. And then that's all I can do. This is my final answer. All right, with division, we said a moment ago, when we divide and they have the same base, you subtract. But before we do that, we can divide the normal numbers here. The coefficient is a 15, that's a 3. If you take 15 and divide it by 3, you get a 5. And then the e's, they're both e, so I'm going to have e here, e. And then I'm taking this 4 and subtracting it with this 5. So this is going to give me 5 e to the negative 1 power, because 4 minus 5 is negative 1. So when I look at this, I'm like, oh, that's a negative 1. I can't have negative exponents, so what I have to do is make a fraction and put the negative exponent in the denominator. So this e will go in the denominator, and now it gets to be a positive 1, or a positive exponent. But the 5 here does not have a negative exponent, so it stays in the top. So then this is my final answer, because now e is positive. Let me just explain why this happens. Why does e get thrown in the bottom? So let me just take this expression here. If you don't care about why this happens, you can move on to the next problem or fast forward. But basically what happens is that you have 5e to the negative 1. Well, you can always put something over 1. And so everything here is technically in the numerator when it starts out. So this e, because it's a negative, it gets put in the bottom. So in this case, this will be e to the 1st power now, but the 5 was never a negative, so it stays back in the top. So that's why our answer led to this here. Okay, so that's really what's happening in the background. All right, so for this next problem here, you have an exponent that's outside the parentheses. Now, inside the parentheses, this term here has a negative 2. It has a coefficient. So I'm going to drag this 3 to the 2. So that's going to be negative 2 to the third power. So that negative 2, or the coefficient, gets that exponent. But the exponent also goes to the e as well. So this is going to be e to the 4th power, 4x power. And then I'm going to have a 3 out in front. So it's like this negative 2 got a 3. This e got a 3 as well. So I have to figure out what negative 2 to the third power is. And you can do this in your calculator. But if you just take 2 and you multiply it itself 3 times, you get negative 8, right? Because negative 2 times negative 2 gives you positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 gives you negative 8. So this is going to be negative 8. E 4x is out here, and then a 3 is here. So when you have 2 exponents, you're going to multiply and get 12x. And then that's it. That's all I can do. So this is negative 8e to the 12x. And we're done. All right, so at this point, you guys are probably wondering, like, why does she keep using e's here? Is there something special about e? And actually, there is. E is probably one of the most famous numbers in mathematics. In fact, e is pretty much as popular and well-known, maybe not as well-known or well-used, as pi. So you guys know pi, which is, the number that is like 3.14, and then it continues on, right, forever and ever. Well, e represents 2.718, and it also goes on forever and ever. And so pi, the reason why we use this Greek symbol, this here represents pi, because we don't want to write 3.14 every time we want to use the number pi. And you guys know that pi is in a lot of formulas in geometry. Well, e is also in a lot of formulas, especially in science, okay? So because it crops up a lot in just in nature, we have to create a symbol that represents this very obnoxious number. So in this case, we use the letter E to represent it because the person who discovered it and gave it its name was a man named Euler. And so, E is for Euler. So let's get down to business on how do we use E. And I'll explain later in another journal where does E come about. But for today, I'm just going to teach you the skills that will get through your homework packet and just work with these problems. So these problems here will ask you to evaluate these e's. So you're going to have to take e to the third power. Basically, imagine taking this number and multiplying itself by 3 times. You'll have to take e to the 0.7 and e to the 1/3 power. Now, all of these problems are done in a calculator. I would not expect you to be able to do this by hand. So I'm going to grab my scientific calculator here. I think your iPhone or any kind of smartphone will actually do this. You can also just plug this into a computer like a laptop and Google search it too. But I'm going to do this on a calculator so that when you come to class, you know how to use the calculator. So I'm going to grab that here and switch my camera in a moment. Let's see. Let's do the add-on camera. Video. Switch it. All right. Let's see if I can move this. Oh, there's a shadow. Okay, you can see my calculator here. So what you'll need to do is to plug in e to the 3rd power, you're going to need the e first. So if you kind of look on this calculator here, sorry for the glare, you'll start to notice that E is in blue and it's above the ln. So because it's in blue, you have to hit the blue button or second and then hit the ln button. And when you do that, this appears on your screen. And this E is there now. It's waiting for an exponent. And we need to put 3 in here so we can figure out what e to the 3rd power is. So I'm going to press 3 on the keyboard. and then I'm gonna hit enter, and then there's my set of numbers. So I'm gonna put this to the side here so that way you guys can see. So in this one here, I have, let's put in my numbers here. This, if I round to 3 decimal places, it's 20.08. Round that 5 up to 6. I think that would be my answer. All right, so pretty easy. I'm gonna do it for this one too. So again, if you guys wanna see, I'm gonna hit the blue button and then ln, and then that appears. And this time I'm gonna put 0.7. And then hit enter, and then I get this number here. It's 2.014 if I round. So let me grab my pen here. 2.014. And last but not least, you guys are probably wondering like, oh my goodness, how am I gonna do a 1/3? It's a fraction. Well, turns out 1/3 is just division, right? You can say 1 divided by 3, and that's the same thing as saying 1/3. So what you can do is use division in your calculator. So again, I gotta get the E first. So second, blue button, ln, and there it is. Now I'm gonna do 1, I'm gonna press the 1, divided, see that fraction right there? Then I'm gonna press in the 3. So this says E to the 1/3 now. I'm gonna press enter, and then there we go. So now I'm gonna grab that number, 1.396 if I round. 1.396. And then I have evaluated all of my E's. So pretty easy if you have a graphing calculator. So make sure when you're in class, utilize the tools that are around you. But that's how you would do those problems. So this is the end of the journal. In the next couple of slides, I am going to be working on the homework problem on page 2. So if you want to check out some homework problems with me, just follow along. All right, so like I said, this is packet 12, page 2. So I'm on the second page of the homework packet. And this first part, you'll see like the first 4 problems on the homework, you have to use the calculator to figure out what the E value is when you raise it to a certain power. So this E is to the 0 power. Now this one you actually don't need a calculator because we learned anything to the 0 power is 1, right? Anything to the 0 power is 1. So that one you don't need a calculator. Now this one you definitely will need a calculator. This is E to the negative 1/3 power. So you'll need to write this as, well, let's go find out in the calculator. So let me grab my camera here so that way you can see this with me. Grabbing camera. This would be video. All right, so grabbing my camera here. Let me shrink this down just a little bit. So this is gonna be E, so second ln, so there's my E, and I'm going to put a negative sign because it's negative 1/3, so 1 divided by 3. So there it is typed in, and now I'm going to hit enter, and it looks like it's 0.717 if I round. So let me just, there we go. I'm going to freeze that screen. So that's going to be 0.717 when I round. And then I have my answer. So all of these you can use with a calculator. All right, so I'm going to do 4 of the problems from the homework packet to help you guys out. And then I would like you to try the rest. So this one here for number 6 through like 12. So I think the first or the problems after number 4, you just need to simplify. So you don't need the calculator for this. Please, actually, I don't encourage you to use the calculator to plug in E's because you'll actually get decimal numbers and it's going to look really messy. So try to do your best to do this by hand. And so in this case, the first one here has an exponent on the outside. So we learned in the journal that you need to distribute the exponent to the coefficient. So this 5 is 5 to the 3rd power. And you're going to also give it to the E. So this is E6 to the 3rd power. Now we have to figure out what 5 to the 3rd power is, and that part you can put in the calculator. But if you just do 5 times 5 times 5, that gives you 125. So 5 to the 3rd power is 125. Now for this E, it has a 6, so 6 times 3 gives me e to the 18th power. So because 6 times 3 gives me 18. And then that's all I can do. So that's it. All right, then this one here, you have a 2 in the front. So this one's a 2 in the front. And you technically have a 1 in front of the other e. So I always like to do first to multiply the numbers that are outside. So 2 times 1 is 2. And now I'm going to multiply this e with this e. When I do that, I need to add the exponents. So I'm going to add the exponents here. So this is going to be x plus 3. And when I add the like terms, those x's will add. So this is going to be 2e to the 2x plus 3. I'll just carry down the 3. And then that's all I can do. So this is it. All right, and then the next one here I have division. So when we divide, let's divide the numbers first. So the coefficients, 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. And then the e's, these are both e's. So this is going to be an e here. But when I divide, I subtract. Now I'm going to show my work here because you guys will start to see something. This will be 2 minus -4. Now when you write this out, you will start to notice there are 2 negative signs, which makes them into positives. So this is really 2 plus 4, which gives me a 6. So I have 5e to the 6th power, and then that's all I can do. All right, and then this one here, we have a square root. You guys have probably been sick of me saying this, but a square root always has a 2 outside, and in this case we know that we're probably going to be using that 2. Now if you take the square root of 64, two numbers that multiply to give you 64, or the square root of 64 is 8, because the two numbers that multiply to give you 64 are 8 and 8. And so we remember that pairs come out of the root. And then this e, this e has a 4x on it as an exponent. So when we have exponents in root, we divide. So we have to ask ourselves, what is 4x divided by 2? What is 4x divided by 2? Well, that really is a 2x. So this is really e to the 2x after you've taken the root. And then that's it. That's all you can do. So we're done. There's no negative exponents, so that's good. So we don't really need to simplify anything further. So I hope this helps you out with the homework. Try out the other homeworks. Anyhow, hope you guys have a good day. Bye, guys.